Good morning. Today we're not going to be baking. Um, we're going to explore whether the bread maker I am using is or helps me save money. So, the question that we're going to answer today is: do you really save money on bread when you use your bread maker? Is it that significant? Okay, so that's actually a question that I'm going to answer based from my experience. Okay, so this is the bread I baked, and I had a video of in one of my videos, which I will post a link down below. This is a 750-gram bread, so my costs will be based on this in order to find out whether I'm saving on the bread I'm making in the bread maker or not. Okay, so let's compute for the cost of the 750-gram bread I baked. First, um, know your bread maker's depreciation cost per use. So I have to know first the bread maker's depreciation. Depreciation is actually the normal wear and tear of a machine or equipment as you use it over the years. So you have to know first how much did you buy the machine. For my bread maker, I bought it for about 3,080 inclusive of shipping. So 3,080 divided by, I'm estimating 5 years of use of this machine, so that's 616 per year depreciation. Now I'm assuming that I'm gonna use it every other day. So assuming I'm gonna use it every other day. So that's 83 days. Sorry, 183 days. That's 365 divided by 2. So that's a cost of 3.37. Next, you have to know how much power your machine use per kilowatt hour. Okay, so this machine has a power of 600 watts per hour. Okay, now let's convert the 600 watts into a kilowatt. So divide by 1000, we get 0.6 kilowatt. Now our electric company charges 9.57 per kilowatt hour. So you multiply 9.57 by 0.6 kilowatt times 3 hours, number of hours I use the machine per baking. Okay, that will yield 17.23 pesos. That's the cost of electricity per baking. Okay, next thing we have to know will be the cost of the water that we use for the recipe. An average 5-gallon of water, purified water, is selling here at 35 pesos. So divided by 18,927 ml, that's the number of milliliters per 5 gallons of water. So that will yield 0.00185 per milliliter. Okay, so this number, you multiply it by 240 ml of water that I use in the loaf that I baked, that yields 0.44 pesos. Okay, for the bread that I baked at 750 grams. Okay, next, we have to know the cost of our butter per use. Okay, the butter that I bought and used for the bread that I baked costs me around 147. So 147 pesos divided by 16 tablespoons of 16 tablespoons. That's about 9.19 per tablespoon. So 9.19 per tablespoon times the 2 tablespoons I used for the recipe, that will yield 18.38 per baking of the bread. Okay, next. we have to know our cost of bread flour per use. Okay, I bought my bread flour for 58 pesos per kilo. Divide by 8 cups. There are 8 cups per kilo of flour. So that yields 7.25 per cup. 7.25 times 1.25 cups. For that recipe, that will yield 9.06 pesos. Okay, next, we have to know the cost of our all-purpose flour per use. My all-purpose flour cost me 70 per kilo. So divided by 8 cups. That will yield 8.75 per cup. 8.75 per cup times 1.5 cups, that will yield 13.12. Okay, next. Know the cost of your sugar per use. Okay, the sugar that I bought costs me about 70 per kilo. Divided by 80 tablespoons, that's the number of tablespoons per kilo of sugar, that will yield 0.88 per tablespoon. So 0.88 times 3 tablespoons that I used for the recipe, that yields 2.64. Okay, next, know the cost of your powdered milk per use. Again, that cost me 97.50 per 300 grams. Divided by 20.98 tablespoons. Okay, so that's the number of tablespoons per 300 grams. So that yields 4.65 per tablespoon. So 4.65 per tablespoons times, per tablespoon times 2 tablespoons that I use for the recipe. That yields 9.30. Again, the milk is just optional. So you can do without this cost. It will save you 9.30 if you don't use powdered milk. Next, let's compute for the cost of the salt for the recipe. Okay, my salt costs me 15 pesos per kilo, divided by 175.82 teaspoons. That's the number of teaspoons per kilo of salt. That will yield 0.09 per teaspoon. Now you multiply that by half a teaspoon, you get 0.05. Okay, next, know the cost of your yeast per use. The yeast that I use costs me 36 per 100 grams. So divide by 35.27 teaspoons. That's the number of teaspoons per 100 gram. That will yield 1.02 per teaspoon. Times 1.25 teaspoons equals 1.28 pesos. Altogether now, let's add all the costs, starting with the depreciation for the machine. That will cost us 3.37 per recipe. And then the power, 17.23. Water, 0.44. Butter, 18.38. Bread flour, 9.06. All-purpose flour, 13.12. Sugar, 2.64. Salt, 0.05. Powdered milk, 930. Yeast, 1.28. That will give us a total of 74.87. Again, the butter can be replaced by oil, so that will still save you a lot if you don't use the butter. Okay, and the powdered milk, you may opt not to add it, so that will save you 9.30 if you do not add it. 9.30 more. Okay, so these two, if you don't add it to the recipe, you can save even more. Okay, so for this recipe, we have 74.87 costs. Now let's compare it with the commercially bought um, loaf of bread. Okay, comparing 750 gram of bread that we bake cost us 74.87. Per gram, that will be divided by 750 grams. So per gram cost is 0.10, so 10 centavos per gram. You multiply it by 600 grams, you get 60 pesos. Okay, why 600 grams? Because that's the weight of the commercially bought bread loaf. So 600 gram of bread from supermarket now costs 82 pesos. How much savings do we have? So we're saving about 22. Again, savings of 22 pesos if you bake from the bread maker. Okay, that's just per baking. Now if you bake for a month, for 15 days, that's baking every other day, you will save how much? Let's see. You multiply the 22 pesos times 15 days. Okay, that's 30 days divided by 2. Every other day of baking, you'll get 330 pesos savings. Again, that's a savings of 330 pesos per month. Is it significant enough? I think so. Again, all the costs depend on the place where you are in and how much you are spending for all the materials that you use and how much your power company charge you for the electricity. I will make a separate video on the savings that you may have when you use a dough maker and a conventional oven. So that will be in another video soon. If you happen to like this video, please click the like button and do subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye.